Millionaire finds this 4-year-old girl alone and abandoned on the road. But when he tries to help her, someone appears behind him, and this happens. Comment what you think will happen. Your opinion is very important. And subscribe to my channel to support my work. Your help is very important. The sun beat down on the dusty road, cutting through rural Arizona, when Thomas Miller, 58, slowed his Mercedes-Benz, spotting something unusual on the shoulder. His eyes, already tired from endless meetings, took a few seconds to process the scene. A small girl, no older than 4, sitting alone by the roadside, clutching a worn rag doll. She wore a faded yellow dress that contrasted sharply with the red dust of the earth. The businessman slammed on his brakes, momentarily forgetting his impeccable Italian suit cost more than a month's salary for his employees. Something about the scene deeply disturbed him. Perhaps it was the memories he fought so hard to keep, locked away, or perhaps it was simply the vulnerability of that child alone under the scorching Maricopa sun. "My God, how can a child this age be out here alone?" he murmured to himself, stepping out of the car. The heat hit him like an invisible wall as soon as he opened the door. As he approached the girl, he noticed she showed no fear. Her large, dark eyes gazed up at him with unnerving serenity. "Hey, little one, where's your mom?" Thomas asked, crouching down to be at her level. It was then he felt the cold metal against the back of his neck. "If you touch her, it'll be the last thing you ever do," a trembling female voice sounded behind him. Thomas slowly raised his hands, his heart pounding in his chest. "Calm down, ma'am. I just wanted to help. I saw the girl alone, and—" "Be quiet," the voice ordered, but Thomas detected the tremor accompanying it. It wasn't the voice of a seasoned criminal. There was fear there. "Mommy, he seems nice," the girl said softly, her voice sweet as honey. It was then Thomas heard a dull thud behind him, and the cold metal left his neck. Turning quickly, he saw a young woman collapsed on the ground. Her face was covered in dirt and sweat, her clothes torn in places, as if she'd scrambled through thick brush in a hurry. "Mommy!" the girl cried, running to the fallen woman. Thomas acted on instinct. He checked the stranger's vital signs. She was alive, but very weak. The little girl clung to her doll, her eyes watering, fixed on her unconscious mother. "What's your name, little one?" Thomas asked gently, as he checked if the woman had serious injuries. "Lily," she answered quietly. "My mommy's name is Sarah. We're running from the bad men." Those words hit Thomas like a punch to the gut. Bad men. How many times had his son, Matthew, used those same words in the nightmares that tormented him before the accident 10 years ago? "I'm going to help you, Lily," he said, making a decision that would change the course of his life forever. "But I need you to trust me." Carefully, Thomas carried Sarah to his car, while Lily followed, clutching her doll. The handgun the woman had been carrying was forgotten in the dust of the road. Thomas made sure of that. He didn't need any more trouble. At the Miller mansion, outside of Phoenix, Clara, the 65-year-old housekeeper who had practically raised Matthew, gasped when she saw her boss carrying an unconscious woman into the house, followed by a small girl. "For heavens! Take Mr. Miller, what happened?" "Prepare the guest room, Clara, and bring fresh water and something for them to eat," he ordered, climbing the stairs with Sarah in his arms. In the following hours, while Sarah remained unconscious, Lily slowly began to relax. Sitting in the mansion's immense kitchen, she devoured a plate of soup Clara had prepared, her curious little eyes exploring every detail of the room. "Do you live alone in this big house?" she asked innocently. Thomas, watching the girl from the kitchen doorway, felt his heart clench. "Now I do," he answered simply. It was then a scream echoed down the hall. Sarah had woken up, disoriented, calling for her daughter. "Lily! Lily!" Thomas and the girl ran to the room. Sarah was trying to get out of bed in a panic. "Mommy, I'm here," Lily ran into her mother's arms, who hugged her tightly. Where are we?" Sarah asked, her green eyes scanning the luxurious room with suspicion. "At my house," Thomas replied from the doorway. "You were on the road, you fainted. I couldn't leave you there." Sarah squeezed Lily to her. "We need to go. It's not safe." "You can barely stand," Thomas interrupted. "And your daughter needs rest. Stay tonight, at least." At that moment, Clara entered the room carrying a tray with tea and biscuits. Her eyes met Sarah's, and something in the housekeeper's maternal expression seemed to calm the young mother. "No one will hurt you here," Thomas assured them, "but I'd like to understand what you're running from." Sarah hesitated, looking at her daughter, who was already dozing off in her arms. "It's a complicated story," she murmured. "I have time," Thomas replied, pulling up an armchair. Something about the situation deeply intrigued him. Perhaps it was the fear in Sarah's eyes, so similar to what he had seen in his son's eyes so many years ago. Or perhaps it was Lily, with her innocence and that look that seemed to see beyond appearances. What Thomas didn't know was that Clara, upon leaving the room, discreetly picked up her cell phone. Her hands trembled slightly as she typed a message. He brought 2 people home, a woman and a child. They seemed to be running from something. Across town, in his penthouse office atop Phoenix's tallest building, August Vance, 60, smiled as he read his aunt's message. After 10 years, destiny had finally presented him with a golden opportunity. Thomas Miller hadn't just lost his son back then, he had also lost his ability to distrust people. And that would be his undoing. In the dimness of the guest room, Sarah held a cup of tea with trembling hands while watching Lily sleep peacefully. The last 72 hours had been a nightmare of escaping through thick woods, sleepless nights, and the constant fear of being discovered. Now, sitting on that luxurious bed in the Miller mansion, she tried to organize her thoughts, to explain her situation to Thomas, who waited patiently in the armchair near the window. "I'm a teacher at the Santa Clara Rural School," she began, her voice almost a whisper, so as not to wake her daughter. "Or at least I was, until 3 days ago." Thomas leaned slightly forward, his attentive eyes catching every expression on the young woman's face. "Go on," he encouraged softly. "It started when I noticed some students weren't coming to class anymore. Entire families simply disappearing from the community overnight." Sarah took a deep breath, the memories weighing on each word. "When I went to investigate, I discovered they were being driven off their land by a group of men led by Vernon Thomas." The name made Thomas straighten up in his armchair. He knew Vernon well, a foreman known for his brutal methods who worked for his biggest business rival. "Last week after class, I was organizing some documents in the office when I found something I shouldn't have," Sarah continued, her voice trembling. "Papers proving all that land was being stolen through forged documents, fake property titles, false signatures." At that moment, Lily stirred in bed, mumbling something in her sleep. Sarah paused, stroking her daughter's hair, until she calmed down. "Why didn't you go to the police?" Thomas asked, even though he already suspected the answer. "I tried," Sarah gave a bitter laugh. "That's when I found out the local sheriff was involved in the scheme. I managed to make copies of the documents, but before I could take the evidence to the Capitol, Vernon showed up at the school." Her hands gripped the cup tighter. "He said he knew what I had discovered. He threatened Lily. He said accidents happen to small children every day." A muscle twitched in Thomas's face. Sarah's words brought back memories he fought daily to keep buried. "We ran that same night," she continued. "I grabbed Lily from the neighbor's house who watches her while I teach, some clothes, and we ran, but they followed us. We had to plunge into the woods." That was when a violent coughing fit interrupted her narrative. Thomas stood up quickly, worried by the harsh sound coming from her chest. "Clara!" he called out, and the housekeeper appeared. almost instantly at the door. "Please call Dr. Olivia. Tell her it's urgent." Clara nodded and left quickly, but not before casting a long look at Sarah. As soon as the housekeeper closed the door, she picked up her cell phone again and typed another message. He called Dr. Olivia to examine the woman. In his office, August Vance frowned as he read the message. Olivia, his ex-wife, the only person who had almost managed to destroy him years ago when she discovered part of his illicit business. This complicated things. Back in the room, Sarah tried to control her cough while Thomas poured more tea. "What do you plan to do with the documents?" he asked after she had calmed down. "I need to take them to someone who can do something about it," she replied. "Someone with enough power to confront whoever is behind all of this." "And who would that person behind it be?" Before Sarah could answer, Lily sat up abruptly in bed, her eyes wide, fixed on an empty spot in the room. "Matthew said Uncle August is a very bad man," the girl said, her voice strangely distant. The blood drained from Thomas's face. No one, absolutely no one in that house had mentioned those names. How could that child know? "Who is Matthew?" Sarah asked, confused. Thomas didn't answer immediately. His eyes were fixed on Lily, who was now playing with her doll as if nothing had happened, completely oblivious to the impact of her words. The heavy silence was broken by the arrival of Dr. Olivia Fontaine. Tall, her 45 years carrying an air of elegance, she entered the room carrying her medical bag and a presence that immediately conveyed confidence. "Good evening," she greeted professionally, her sharp eyes quickly assessing the situation. "I'm Dr. Fontaine. May I examine you?" Sarah nodded hesitantly, while Thomas discreetly withdrew from the room. He needed to think. Lily's words had stirred something deep within him, awakening memories he preferred to keep dormant. In the hallway, he stopped in front of a locked door. Matthew's old room, preserved exactly as it was 10 years ago. His hands trembled slightly as he took the key from his pocket. Inside the room, everything remained untouched. The swimming trophies on the shelf, the sticker-covered laptop on the desk, photos of father and son smiling on various trips. But there was something different today. A soft scent of jasmine hung in the air, Matthew's favorite cologne. "Impossible," Thomas murmured, sitting heavily on his son's bed. It was then he noticed something that made his heart nearly stop. On the pillow was a small red toy car, Matthew's favorite, which had mysteriously disappeared days before the accident. In the next room, while examining Sarah, Dr. Fontaine tried to hide her concern. The symptoms were clear: severe dehydration, early pneumonia, extreme exhaustion. But there was something else, something she detected when listening to the patient's heart. A heart murmur that would need to be investigated. "I'd need to take her to the hospital for more detailed tests," she declared, putting away her stethoscope. "No," Sarah grabbed the doctor's arm. "I can't leave here. They'll find us." Olivia frowned, but before she could question further, Lily had a sudden spasm and fell back onto the bed, her eyes rolling. "My daughter!" Sarah cried out, desperate. The doctor acted quickly, turning the girl onto her side as she convulsed. Seconds later, Thomas burst into the room, still pale from his discovery in the next room. "She has a condition," Sarah explained between tears. "Sudden fainting spells. The doctors never discovered the cause." Olivia timed the seizure on her watch, her face tense. When Lily finally relaxed, unconsciously mumbling incomprehensible words, the doctor turned to Thomas. "I need equipment, heart monitors, specific medications. This girl needs constant monitoring." "Arrange everything," Thomas ordered without hesitation. "Set up a hospital room right here if necessary. Money is not a problem." What none of them noticed was Clara standing at the doorway, watching everything with an indecipherable expression. This time, her hands didn't tremble as she typed the message to her nephew. "The girl is sick. Thomas ordered a hospital setup in the mansion. And there's something else. She mentioned Matthew. She knew the name without anyone saying it. August. I think we've gone too far this time. The next morning, the Miller mansion had transformed. A discreet team of healthcare professionals, carefully selected by Dr. Fontaine, installed medical equipment in the room next to Lily's. Thomas spared no expense. State-of-the-art heart monitors, oxygenation devices, imported medications. Everything to ensure the safety of the little girl who, inexplicably, had touched something deep in his hardened heart. Sarah watched everything, from the armchair, where she was confined by medical orders, fighting her own pneumonia with powerful antibiotics. Her green eyes, though tired, never left her daughter, who slept peacefully in the bed beside her, connected to sensors monitoring her heart rate. "You didn't have to do all this," she murmured, when Thomas entered the room carrying an old document folder. "Yes, I did," he replied, sitting near the window. The morning sun filtered lazily through the silk curtains. "But now, I need you to—" "Tell me the whole truth, Sarah." She visibly tensed. "I already told you." "No, you didn't," he interrupted, his voice firm but gentle. "You weren't just a teacher at the rural school, were you? The documents you found, you knew exactly where to look." Tears began to well up in Sarah's eyes. "How?" "I have my contacts," Thomas continued. "You worked at the county clerk's office for 3 years before becoming a teacher. You were a trusted employee. You had access to all the records." At that moment, Lily stirred in bed, murmuring in her sleep, "The safe behind the painting. Uncle August's papers." Sarah paled. Thomas leaned forward, his intense eyes fixed on her. "How does your daughter know these things? How did she know about Matthew, about August?" Before Sarah could answer, Dr. Fontaine entered the room, carrying test results. Her normally controlled face showed concern. "We need to talk," she said, looking at Thomas. "In private." In Thomas's office, Olivia spread a series of test results over the mahogany desk. "Lily's condition is more complex than we imagined," she began, pointing to some images. "There's a congenital heart anomaly, yes, but there's something else, something I can't medically explain." "What do you mean?" "During the fainting episodes, her brain shows patterns of activity I've never seen before. It's as if—" She hesitated, choosing her words. "As if she's in 2 places at once." Thomas felt a shiver run down his spine. 2 places. "I know it will sound crazy, but during the crisis this morning, she mumbled about a room smelling of jasmine and a red toy car." The businessman stood up abruptly, knocking over some papers. "Impossible. No one but me has been in that room in 10 years. "There's more," Olivia continued, her professional voice masking her own unease. "She drew this during the examination." She held out a paper where Lily had drawn, with typical childlike simplicity, a scene that made Thomas's blood run cold. A red car rolled over at the edge of a cliff with a dark figure standing nearby, smiling. "My God," he murmured, staggering back to his chair. That was exactly how Matthew's car had been found. Upstairs, Clara finished changing the sheets in Lily's room when she noticed something strange. A strong scent of jasmine emanated from the girl's clothes. The same cologne her nephew August always used in his important meetings. Her wrinkled hands trembled as she picked up her cell phone, but before she could type any message, a voice surprised her. "You don't need to do that anymore, Clara." It was Sarah, standing at the door, still pale but with a determined look. "Do what, my dear?" the housekeeper asked, trying to stay calm. "Report our every move to August Vance," Sarah replied, entering the room and closing the door behind her. "I know he's your nephew. I know he put you here 30 years ago to spy on Thomas." Clara dropped her phone, her legs weak. "How?" "I worked at the county clerk's office, remember? I saw all the records, including the documents that prove your son isn't in Europe getting a master's degree, as you tell everyone. He's being held by August on one of his properties out in the country. That's why you do everything he tells you, isn't it?" The elderly woman collapsed into the nearest chair, tears streaming down her wrinkled face. "You don't understand. August said he'll do to my Richard the same thing he did to young Matthew if I don't obey." At that moment, Lily sat up abruptly in bed, her eyes strangely focused. "Uncle August lied, Mrs. Clara. Richard is fine. He managed to escape 3 months ago. He's hiding in Tucson, working as a math teacher at a private school." The housekeeper's eyes widened. How can you know that?" "Matthew told me," the girl simply replied, before lying back down and falling asleep as if nothing had happened. In the office, Thomas and Olivia were interrupted by an urgent knock at the door. It was one of his private investigators, carrying a thick envelope. "We found something, sir," he said, spreading photos on the table. "All the rural properties being forcibly taken. There's a pattern." Thomas examined the map the investigator unrolled. The lands formed a nearly perfect circle around his property. "He's surrounding me," Thomas murmured. "But why?" "Because of the water," the investigator replied, pointing to a partially concealed project. "August Vance is building a secret dam. When it's finished, he'll be able to control the entire water flow in the region. Your lands, Mr. Miller, will be completely dry." Olivia brought her hands to her mouth. "He hasn't changed at all, still destroying lives to get what he wants." "Doctor?" Thomas questioned, noticing something in her voice. "August Vance is my ex-husband," she revealed, her voice heavy with bitterness. "I divorced him 8 years ago when I discovered some of his illegal dealings. I tried to report him, but he's too powerful. He managed to completely discredit me." Thomas was processing this new information when a sharp cry cut through the air, coming from upstairs. The 3 of them ran up the stairs, only to find a surprising scene. Clara was hugging a young man who was crying profusely, while Sarah watched the scene with a tired smile. "Richard!" the housekeeper exclaimed between sobs. "My son! You're alive!" "I managed to escape, Mom," he replied, holding her tightly. "That monster, Uncle August. He lied all these years. He kept me locked up, saying he'd hurt you if I tried to make contact." Thomas watched the scene, stunned, when he felt a small hand take his. Lily looked at him with those deep eyes, too wise for her age. "Matthew said there's only one piece left of the puzzle now," she spoke softly. "The driver's diary is buried in the orchard, near the big mango tree. He buried it there before he left because he knew it would be important someday." The businessman felt his legs weaken. Matthew's car's driver had mysteriously disappeared days after the accident. The police never found any leads. "How do you know all this, little one?" he asked, kneeling down to be at her height. Lily smiled, a sweet and sad smile at the same time. "Some people can see beyond the veil, Uncle Thomas. Mommy says it's a gift, or a curse, depending on the day. But Matthew, he really needed to tell you the truth. He didn't want you to keep suffering." At that moment, as if to confirm the girl's words, a soft scent of jasmine filled the hallway, and for a brief instant, Thomas could have sworn he saw the shadow of his son smiling in the window's reflection. Night fell over the Miller mansion. As the storm began, thunder shook the windows as Thomas, Olivia, and 2 trusted men dug in the orchard, guided by Lily's precise directions. The torrential rain drenched their clothes, but no one dared suggest stopping, not when they were so close to discovering the truth. "Here!" one of the men shouted when his shovel hit something solid. Carefully, they unearthed a sealed metal chest, surprisingly well preserved after a decade underground. Thomas felt his hands tremble as he inserted the key, found exactly where Lily said it would be, inside the red toy car in Matthew's room. Inside the office, protected from the storm, Thomas spread the contents of the chest over his desk, a leather-bound diary, photos, receipts, and a sealed letter addressed to him. "Dear boss," he began to read aloud, his voice thick with emotion. "If you are reading this, it means something happened to me. My name is Anthony Smith, and I was your son Matthew's driver for 3 years. What I'm about to reveal here is the truth about what happened that night and why I was forced to do what I did." In the kitchen, Sarah was making tea for everyone, her hands still trembling slightly from the antibiotics. Richard, Clara's son, helped silently, still processing the day's events. His mother slept in the next room, exhausted after the emotional shock of the reunion. "How did you know I was in Tucson?" he finally asked Sarah. She smiled sadly. "It wasn't me, it was Lily. She has a special gift." "A gift that's getting stronger," Dr. Fontaine added, entering the kitchen. "The tests show extraordinary brain activity during her episodes. It's as if she can access memories and information she shouldn't know. She's been like this since she was a baby," Sarah revealed, her hands clutching the teacup. At first, it was just little things. She knew when it was going to rain, she found lost objects. But then... Her voice trailed off. "Then?" Olivia encouraged. Gently. "Then she started talking to people who weren't there, to know things she had no way of knowing. That's why I started working at the county clerk's office. I needed a better paying job to take her to specialists, but no doctor could explain it." A particularly strong clap of thunder made the lights flicker. Upstairs, Lily slept peacefully, monitored by softly beeping equipment. In the office, Thomas continued his reading, each word of the driver's diary, a stab to his heart. "August Vance came to me 3 months before the accident. He said he knew about my sick daughter, about the hospital debts. He offered to pay everything in exchange for a favor. I was to ensure young Matthew didn't make it home that specific night. He didn't mention hurting anyone. He just said he needed the boy, was delayed by a few hours." Olivia, who had joined him in the office, placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Go on," she whispered. "But it was all a lie," the diary continued. "When I picked Matthew up from school that day, we were followed by another car. I tried to lose them, but they forced us off the road. Before the car rolled over, Matthew screamed something about hidden documents, about having discovered the truth. The last sound I heard was his voice saying, 'Dad, forgive me.'" Thomas dropped the diary, choked sobs catching in his throat. Olivia hugged him tightly, her own tears mixing with his. "There's more," she said softly, picking up another page. "The driver survived the accident. He saw who was in the other car. Just then, a sharp cry cut through the air. Everyone rushed to Lily's room, finding the girl sitting up in bed, her eyes wide, fixed on an empty spot in the room. "They're coming," she said in a voice that didn't sound like hers. "Vernon found out where we are, and he brought Uncle August." As if to confirm her words, headlights from several cars illuminated the mansion's entrance. Mr. Miller, one of the security guards, ran in. "We have trouble. Vernon Thomas and 5 other men just broke down the main gate." "Get everyone out of here," Thomas ordered, his voice regaining its firmness. "Use the back passage." "There's no time," Lily interrupted, now fully awake. "Matthew says we need to go to the attic. There's a secret passage behind the bookshelf." Sarah hugged her daughter. "How do you—" "Later," Thomas cut in. "Right now we need to move." Within minutes, the group quietly ascended the stairs leading to the attic, carrying only the essentials. Richard helped his mother, still weak, while Olivia supervised the transfer of the portable medical equipment necessary for Lily. Downstairs, they could hear loud voices and the sound of furniture being overturned. "Where's the passage, little one?" Thomas whispered. Lily walked directly to an old bookshelf, her small hands touching a specific carving in the woodwork. With a soft click, a panel slid open, revealing a narrow corridor. "How did she know?" Richard murmured. "The same way she knew about you," Sarah replied. She sees things others can't. The group had barely entered the passage when they heard heavy footsteps in the attic. Through a crack in the panel, Thomas watched Vernon and his men tearing the place apart. "They can't have just vanished," a voice bellowed, which Thomas recognized immediately. August Vance. "Find those documents." "Boss," one of the thugs called out, "I found something weird here." A strong smell of jasmine. In the dark corridor, Lily held Thomas's hand. "Matthew says we need to go all the way to the end. There's an exit that leads to the caretaker's house basement." "But the caretaker," Clara began. "The house has been empty for years," Lily finished, "since Mr. Anthony disappeared." Thomas froze. Anthony, the driver. "His house was at the back of the property," he whispered. "How do you know this, Lily?" "Because that's where he hid the other part of the evidence," the girl replied. "The pictures he took of the car that followed them. The ones that show August Vance giving orders to the men who forced young Matthew's car off the road." A crash from the attic made everyone jump. Through the crack, they saw August knocking over shelves, his face contorted with fury. "That brat has to be here somewhere," he screamed. "Find her. She's the key to everything." "Why her?" Vernon asked. "She's just a sick kid." "A kid who knows too much," August replied. "Somehow she knows things no one should know. Things about that night, about what really happened to Thomas's son." Who's in the dark corridor? Sarah held Lily protectively. The girl, however, seemed strangely calm. "Don't worry, Mommy," she whispered. "Matthew won't let them hurt us. He's been waiting 10 years for this moment." As if answering her words, an inexplicable wind blew through the attic, extinguishing the invaders' flashlights, and in the air, soft but unmistakable, the scent of jasmine intensified. The group moved cautiously through the dark corridor, guided only by the small flashlight on Richard's cell phone and Lily's surprising confidence, who seemed to know every turn of the way as if she had walked it hundreds of times. The secret passage, built decades ago as an escape route, spiraled gently downward toward the back of the property. "We need to stop," Olivia whispered, noticing Sarah's increasingly difficult breathing. The pneumonia, aggravated by the dampness of the place, was clearly worsening. They found a small widening in the tunnel, where some old chairs and dusty boxes indicated the place had served as a hiding spot before. Thomas helped Sarah sit down, while Olivia checked her vital signs. "Mommy needs the blue medicine," Lily said, surprising the doctor, who was already reaching for exactly this bottle in her emergency kit. "How does she do that?" Richard murmured, helping his mother Clara settle into another chair. "The same way she knew about you," Sarah replied, between difficult breaths. "The same way she knows about Matthew, about everything." Just then, distant sounds of footsteps and raised voices echoed through the tunnel. The group fell silent, tense. "They won't find us here," Lily assured them with a certainty disconcerting for a child her age. "Matthew is distracting them upstairs." As if to confirm her words, they heard shouts coming from the mansion. "What's that smell?" August's voice bellowed. "And this cold! Vernon, send the men to check downstairs." Thomas took advantage of the moment of forced calm to examine the documents he had quickly grabbed before fleeing, the driver's diary and the newly discovered photos in the buried chest. Under the dim flashlight beam, the black and white images revealed a sinister story. "My God," he whispered, his hands trembling as he recognized faces in the photographs. It wasn't just August. There were more people involved. Olivia leaned in to see better, and her face paled. "That one there, that's Judge Montenegro. And next to him, the current mayor of Phoenix," Sarah completed, her voice weak but firm. "The same ones who approved the dam project without any environmental impact study." "But why?" Richard questioned. "Why kill a teenager?" "Because Matthew discovered something no one was supposed to know," Lily replied, her eyes focused on a distant point in the darkness. He found the original documents for the dam project, the real project. Thomas felt his heart clench. What documents, little one? The ones that show the dam isn't just to control the water, the girl continued. It's to get to the other treasure, the one hidden beneath the farmers' lands. Gold, Sarah murmured, finally understanding. That's why they're driving everyone out. There's an underground gold mine that can only be accessed after the dam diverts the river. A violent coughing fit prevented her from continuing. Olivia quickly administered more medication, her face worried. We need to get her out of here, the doctor said. This dampness is killing her. We can't leave yet, Lily intervened. We need to get the other evidence from Mr. Anthony's house first. But why would he hide evidence in 2 different places? Richard asked. Because he knew he was being followed, Thomas replied, flipping through the diary. Here. He wrote about it. The night after the accident, he went back to the scene. He photographed everything, and then he went after August, Clara completed, speaking for the first time since they entered the tunnel. I remember that night. August arrived at the mansion distraught, his clothes covered in dirt. He asked me to wash and burn them. You knew? Thomas asked, his voice trembling with contained rage. Not everything, the housekeeper replied, tears streaming down her wrinkled face. I only knew something terrible had happened when Anthony disappeared. August said he had run off with stolen money, but his body was never found, Lily completed softly. Because they hid him in the same place where they're going to build the dam. A heavy silence fell over the group. Upstairs, the sounds of searching seemed to be moving away. How do you know all this, my dear? Sarah asked, stroking the girl's hair. Because it's not just me who sees, Lily replied. Matthew sees me too, and Mr. Anthony, and everyone else who was hurt by Uncle August. They needed someone to tell the truth. At that moment, a metallic sound echoed through the tunnel, like an old door being opened. It's the entrance to Mr. Anthony's house, Lily said, standing up. Matthew opened it for us. That's impossible, Richard murmured. How could a presence open a real door? Quantum physics suggests that consciousness can influence material reality, Olivia intervened, surprising everyone. I've been studying similar cases since I started treating Lily. There are documented phenomena of psychokinesis in situations of high emotional stress, especially involving children. And the closer we get to the truth, the stronger the connection gets, Lily completed. The group cautiously advanced through the dark tunnel, now guided by a soft metallic creaking sound. They reached an old iron door, partially open, revealing the basement of the former driver's house. Uncle August's men won't take long to realize we're here, Lily warned. We have to be fast. Inside the dusty house, the girl walked directly to an old sideboard in the living room. Without hesitation, she pulled out a specific drawer and felt underneath it, removing a false bottom. Here, she said, handing a thick envelope to Thomas. The last pictures Mr. Anthony took. And there's something else. She reached her small hand deeper into the hiding spot and pulled out a small digital voice recorder. He was recording everything, she explained. Every conversation, every threat, including the last conversation with Uncle August. Thomas turned on the device with trembling hands. August Vance's voice filled the dusty room. You think you can blackmail me, Anthony? I built an empire. I have judges, politicians, the whole damn police force in my pocket. No one is going to believe a washed-up driver. They'll believe the pictures, Anthony's firm voice replied. The recordings. The documents young Matthew found before you had him killed. That smart aleck kid. Just like his father. Always. Trying to be the hero. Did he really think he could stop me from building my dam? From getting to the gold? So you admit it, that you ordered a teenager killed for money? A cruel laugh echoed through the recording. Money! You have no idea what's at stake, Anthony. That mine has enough gold to buy half the state. With the damn, I'll dry up Thomas's lands, force him to sell everything for a pittance. And the best part, everyone will cheer. They'll say I'm bringing progress, jobs." A sound of struggle followed by a dull thud. "But you won't be here to see it, my dear driver." The recording ended abruptly. In the silent room, Lily held Thomas's hand. "Now you have all the evidence," she said softly. "Matthew can finally rest." Before anyone could respond, headlights illuminated the front of the house. "They found us!" Richard exclaimed, running to the window. "No," Lily replied calmly. "It's the federal police. I asked Matthew to tell them." "How?" Thomas began, but was interrupted by the sound of helicopters approaching and several police cars surrounding the property. "Lily!" Sarah called, her voice weak. "How did you know they would come?" The girl smiled, that wise and sad smile that seemed so out of place on her childlike face. "Because it wasn't just Matthew who helped me, it was also Sheriff Carlos." "But there's no Sheriff Carlos in the area," Richard said. "Not now," Lily replied. "He was the sheriff who was investigating Matthew's case 10 years ago, the one who discovered the truth about Uncle August, the one who was also silenced." Outside, federal police cruisers swarmed the property, and in the night air, mixing with the sound of sirens, a soft scent of jasmine announced that justice, at last, was arriving. 6 months passed since that stormy night. The Miller mansion, once dark and silent, now vibrated with a different energy. The sound of children's laughter echoed through the halls, mixing with the aroma of jasmine that, curiously, never left the place. Thomas watched from the veranda as Lily played in the garden, her health completely recovered after a revolutionary treatment developed by Dr. Fontaine. The doctor had discovered that the girl's fainting spells were related to a rare heart condition, which was corrected with a delicate surgery. But the visions, as everyone affectionately called them now, remained. "I still wonder how." "She knew everything," Sarah said, approaching with 2 cups of coffee. Her own recovery had been slow but steady, and now she coordinated the reconstruction of the rural school, completely renovated with funds from the Miller Foundation. "Some things don't need an explanation," Thomas replied, accepting the cup. His face, once always tense and bitter, now showed a serenity that surprised everyone who knew him. August Vance's arrest had shaken the entire state. The evidence found, the driver's diary, the photos, the recordings, revealed a network of corruption that spanned decades. The dam project was cancelled, the lands returned to the farmers, and the gold mine would be legally exploited, with royalties benefiting the entire community. But the biggest surprise came during the trial, when August, cornered by the evidence, finally confessed the true reason behind Matthew's death. "It wasn't just for the gold," Lily revealed that morning, swinging on the swing Thomas had installed. "In the garden, Matthew discovered something much worse on Uncle August's computer." "What did he discover, little one?" Thomas asked, sitting next to her. "That his mom didn't suffer a car accident like everyone thought," the girl replied, her dark eyes fixed on a distant point. "Uncle August had her hurt when he found out she was investigating the fake documents for his company." Thomas felt the air leave his lungs. Clotilde, his ex-wife, had been in a car accident 15 years ago, right after she started working in the legal department of August's company. She survived, but the experience completely changed her. She became bitter, distant, until she finally filed for divorce and moved overseas. "Is that why she came back?" Sarah asked softly. "To try and fix things?" "She's trying," Lily replied. "The doctor said the therapy sessions are helping her remember everything, and Matthew said he's proud of her for finally facing the truth." In the mansion's office, now transformed into a welcoming room, Clara organized old photographs in a new album. Her son Richard, now officially a math teacher in Tucson, visited every weekend. "I thought you'd want to retire after all this," he commented, helping to organize the photos. "And leave this family now that we're finally all together," she replied, smiling. "Never. I have a lot to make up for." On the veranda, Olivia arrived for her daily visit, carrying a folder with Lily's latest test results. In recent months, she and Thomas had developed a closeness that went beyond the doctor-patient relationship. It was common to see them talking late in the library, sharing stories, fears, and increasingly, hopes. "The tests are perfect," she announced, sitting next to him. "And there's one more thing." She opened the folder, revealing an official document. "The State Medical Board approved our proposal. We're opening a research center right here in Phoenix, specializing in rare pediatric heart conditions." "What are we going to call it?" Thomas asked, though he already knew the answer. "The Matthew Miller Institute," Olivia replied, her eyes shining. "So no other child goes without proper treatment." In the garden, Lily stopped swinging abruptly, her face lighting up with a smile. "Matthew is very happy," she announced. "He said he can finally really rest because his dad finally found happiness again." Sarah hugged her daughter, silent tears streaming down her face. In recent months, her own true story had also come to light. She wasn't really a teacher at first, but a county clerk employee who discovered the fraud, and when she tried to report it, was threatened. She fled to the rural community, where she found refuge and a new calling teaching the local children. "Aren't you mad at me for lying?" she had asked Thomas weeks ago. "How could I be?" He replied, "You and Lily brought the truth back into my life. You brought justice for my son." The mansion's transformation continued. Matthew's room, once locked and untouched, was transformed into a children's library, open to the community's children. The scent of jasmine, once a painful reminder, now brought comfort. It was as if Matthew was still there, approving the changes. Clotilde, after months of intensive therapy, began to participate more actively in the foundation, especially in the legal department that helped small farmers regularize their land. The trauma of the past, though still present, no longer consumed her as it once did. On a particularly meaningful afternoon, Lily asked to have a special celebration in the garden. When asked why, she simply replied, "It's Matthew's birthday." Thomas, initially hesitant, agreed. The party was simple but significant. Children from the community filled the garden with laughter, cakes and sweets were served, and stories about Matthew were shared with affection. During the celebration, Lily approached Thomas with a drawing. It showed the whole family gathered, including a smiling figure hovering above them. "He wants you to know he's at peace," she said softly, "and that now you can be happy again." That night, after everyone had retired, Thomas remained on the veranda watching the stars. Olivia joined him, their hands finding each other naturally. "You know what's most incredible?" she asked. "How a series of seemingly tragic events ended up uniting all these people, healing old wounds, bringing justice and love back." "Like a puzzle being completed," he agreed, "each piece finding its place." In the room, Lily slept peacefully, her rag doll, now restored by Clara, hugged to her chest. In her dreams, she talked with Matthew about the changes in the mansion, about how his dad was smiling more, about how love had mysterious ways of healing even the deepest wounds. And in the night air, the scent of jasmine remained, soft and constant, like a silent blessing over that family that destiny had brought together in the most unexpected way. A family built not just by blood ties, but by something much stronger. The search for truth, the courage to face the past, and above all, the ability to believe that even in the darkest nights, there is always a light guiding the way home. The Old Miller Mansion, once a monument to sadness and loneliness, was transformed into a true home, where children's laughter mingled with the aroma of jasmine, where old wounds were healed with love and understanding, and where the memory of a brave young man lived forever through the good his story inspired. And so, on that starry night in Phoenix, as an impromptu family found their way to happiness, Matthew's spirit finally rested in peace, knowing his departure had not been in vain. It had been the first step of a much larger journey, a journey of healing, love, and redemption that would continue to touch lives for generations to come.